Okay, as promised, here is our quick video going over what you need to know for tomorrow's quiz over ancient Greece. On the left of the screen, you can see the study guide that I handed out today that you worked on in class, and we're going to go through that. And on the right side, I've got Safari open, so we may look some things up so we can visually see what we're talking about. Who conquered the Greek city-states, united Greece, and expanded the Greek Empire? Alexander the Great. Is, of course, who we're talking about there. He was from Macedonia, and here's a couple pictures of Alexander. His father was King Philip of Macedonia, and they came down and conquered each one of the Greek city-states one at a time. Remember, Sparta and Athens had been at war and had weakened each other considerably, so Alexander was the one that really united ancient Greece and turned it into an empire under his rule. The 5 Greek polises that we studied in class would have been Sparta, Athens, Megara, Corinth, and Argos. Remember, that word polis means city or city-state. That's when we talk about cities like Indianapolis or Minneapolis or Annapolis, which is in Maryland. The polis at the end, it means city. So Indianapolis literally means Indiana City. Ancient Greece spread its culture through trade. Ancient Greece was right on the Mediterranean Sea, and the Greeks were quite good sailors, and they would sail throughout the Mediterranean, trading goods with people from northern Africa, with people from what's now thought of as the Middle East, people in what's nowadays Spain and Italy. All throughout the Mediterranean region they would trade, and as they traded, they spread their culture, their language, their music, their academics, like math and science. A large area of land and people controlled by a single ruler is called an empire. Again, before Alexander, we wouldn't think of ancient Greece as being an empire because it was a bunch of individual city-states. But when Alexander conquered ancient Greece and united it under his rule, it did become an empire. Okay. Democracy is the next one. A government where people vote for their leaders is called a democracy. Democracy has its roots in ancient Athens. That's not what I want. But as we see in this picture, power to the people, and in this cartoon, the people depicted are from ancient Athens, where democracy got its foundations. A type of government where instead of having one ruler like a king in the monarchies of the time, the people themselves had the power to vote. The citizens of Athens had the power to vote. The Greek word for city is polis. I discussed that earlier when we talked about the 5 Greek polises that we discussed. Extremely old from a long time ago would be ancient. And some examples of things that are ancient. Let's see if we can get some pictures here. There's Stonehenge. There's some Greek ruins. There's the Sphinx in front of one of the pyramids in ancient Egypt. The ancient Mayans, who we'll learn about later, built ruins like this that you can see in modern Mexico. The stone heads on Easter, I believe that's Easter Island. The Colosseum, built by the ancient Romans. All of these are examples of things that are ancient, very, very old, or from a long time ago. An acropolis is what we call a hill at the center of a polis in ancient Greece. Important buildings were at the top, and it was basically a fortress to protect them from their enemies. The Acropolis of Athens is a famous acropolis. Let's see if I can get a nice picture of that one. Kind of like this one, because this is what we would see in modern day Greece. If you took a trip there, you can see the city of Greece down below. Gives you sort of a feel for how high up the Acropolis was built. You can see the walls around the sides. There's the Parthenon, which is the temple to the goddess Athena that the ancient Greeks had built. So this is the part of the city that would be known as the Acropolis. Center of the city, up, built high on a hill as a fortress and as a place to build temples to their gods and goddesses, and also government buildings. Greek-like, or having Greek characteristics, is Hellenistic. Hellenistic is based on the Greek word for Greece, which was Hellas. So even though we think of it as ancient Greece, the ancient Greeks called where they lived Hellas. And so the idea that the ancient Greeks spread Greek culture throughout the world through trade and, in Alexander's rule, through conquest of other lands, as they spread that Greek culture, that Hellenistic culture, it again means things that were Greek-like. A period of great achievements is a society's golden age. Now, the golden age can be applied to lots of different time periods and groups of people in history. When we talk about the ancient Greeks and ancient Romans, we talk about their golden ages, or, well, I guess the ancient Greeks specifically, but we think of their golden age as a time of their greatest achievements and accomplishments. But we can use the term golden age for the Romans. We can use the term golden age for lots of different things. In Hollywood, they talk about the golden age of Hollywood, which I think this graphic is referring to. But just remember, golden age, it sounds like it's something good, and you're right. It's a time of great achievements. Okay, areas of land and people controlled by another land are called colonies, just like we were once a colony of helps if I spell things right. Just like we were once a colony of England, the ancient Greeks set up colonies all throughout the Mediterranean. That's showing some Greek colonies throughout the Black Sea, which is a little bit to the northeast of ancient Greece. Let's see what else we can find here. There we go. This is going to be a better one. Here are some of the colonies of ancient Greece. You can see the Mediterranean Sea. And here's where Greece was. But all of these little established cities, here's a couple that are in what are now Italy, a few more in southern Europe, a couple in northern Africa, a couple over here in what's nowadays Turkey. Those are all examples of colonies. Those are all examples of colonies of ancient Greece, where the Greek city-states would send people to live, they'd build cities, and they became sort of outposts of that city-state. Okay, the final two questions and final two things that we'll see on the quiz in one format or another. What are some ways that ancient Greece still affects us today? And that would be things like, let's see, I'll go ahead and just type them in here. I know we talked about a couple of things. Democracy, the government that we use, the style of government that we use in our country. Their art, architecture, I'm not spelling very well today, mathematical and scientific ideas that are still the foundations.
Attention students, bus 32 will ride with bus 93. Bus 32 will ride with bus 93.
See, I told you guys I was going to be making this before the school day ended, and there's a little announcement for you. But a lot of the math and science that you study, especially at the middle school level, have its foundations in ancient Greece. They were great artists, great architects. There are still buildings built all throughout the world today that use elements of Greek architecture. And then why did ancient Greece decline? There's a couple of reasons why they didn't stay as strong as they were. First was the war between Athens and Sparta. When they went to war, Sparta eventually was victorious, but both of those great city-states were weakened tremendously by the war. This allowed Alexander the Great to come in and conquer the city-states of ancient Greece, But then, after Alexander sort of took Greece to a whole nother level of greatness and expanded their empire through what was back then known as Persia, now known as Turkey, and as we've talked about, he marched his armies all the way to the borders of what's modern-day India before turning back. On that trip back, Alexander died. And after he died, his generals divided his empire among themselves, which again weakened it. The reason why Alexander and his father before him, Philip of Macedonia, were able to conquer ancient Greece was because all they had to do was conquer one city-state at a time. When Alexander united Greece, they were much, much stronger. But after his death, his generals didn't learn from that. They divided everything back up again out of greed and selfishness, and that allowed those individual empires to slowly but surely be overthrown. Okay, so it's a relatively short quiz tomorrow. It's 15 questions, I believe, and everything that we've talked about in this video will be covered or has been covered or will be a part of the test. Sorry for that.